Hello guys, welcome back to the channel. So in today's video, we're going to continue with our introduction to MySQL database series. So we have moved from basic stuff to more advanced stuff. So in the last video, we learned how to create an ERD from MySQL workbench, and then we converted the ERD into an actual physical database. So now what we're going to go ahead and do is learn how to import data from a CSV file into the database that we created. Because if you look at the database right now, if you go under this is the database, we have classical models test DB, and if you go under tables and you look at each table is just basically empty, right? We have nothing inside of each table. So now we want to go ahead and fill this fill each table with information, right? So this information you're going to get it from a CSV file, and this process of filling empty tables with data from a CSV file is called a backfilling. So let's go ahead and try to do backfilling and apply backfilling and fill all the tables that we have empty right now. Okay, so let's get to it. So the first thing I would want us to do is, first of all, we have to go into the original database that we have, which is called the classic models database, right? So we have been using this database from the beginning. Go under tables, and then we need to get data from these tables. We export it into a CSV file, and then finally we need to go ahead and import that data into our existing database. So let's go ahead and do that. So for the first of all, before we even jump into it, I want to go in here and look at a couple of things. So if you want to import data into your database, the first you need to pay attention to is you need to first make sure that the first import you do is you import data into tables that do not have foreign keys inside of them. Like the office table has no foreign key, the product line table has no foreign key. So make sure that you start with this table. But if you start with tables that have foreign key inside of them, then you get an error with the referencing, because the parents table will not have the data doesn't exist in the parent table, but the child table is trying to refer to that data. So you have an error, right? So make sure you always start with importing data from the parents table. In this case, we're going to start the office table. So go back into our database, which is going to be classic models database. Go and we're going to start with the office because this has no foreign key in this table. So go in the under offices. Okay, so under offices, go ahead and click on offices, and then go ahead and click on this file called export. And export, I'm going to just keep it on my desktop. I'm going to call this one offices. Okay, so just press enter. So on the office, on your desktop now, you're supposed to have a file called offices, okay? And this is going to be a CSV file. So this is going to be a CSV file. And if you open it, you can see it has the office information details inside of it. So we're going to import this into our newly created empty database, okay? So let's go ahead and do that. So you can see every record in here. We're going to go ahead and import it into our newly created database. So go under your newly created database, which is the classical test underscore DB. Go under tables, go under offices, right? Offices table. You can see right now it has no data inside of it. So click this icon right here called import records from an external file. So click on that and then go to browse and then select that external file that you have. Okay. So once you have that, click on next, and then you're going to go ahead and say use existing table. So it doesn't actually select any database. So let's go ahead and close this for now. You're going to set this as the default schema. So I'm going to go ahead and set this as a default schema, and let's go ahead and repeat that process again. So click on offices right here, and then click on import data from an external file. Go ahead and browse, select the office file that you just exported, and then go to next, and then finally make sure you select the offices. Okay, so now select the offices. Okay, offices, and make sure you select the database, the correct database. In this case, classical underscore models underscore test b. So select that, and then finally go on to next. So if you come here, make sure that each record here must, so office or office code from our database matches the office column from our CSV file. And so just check this and make sure everything matches as you want it to match. Okay, so now the MySQL has some errors or some funny issues that it has sometimes. So sometimes you have to go ahead and play with these options. So in my case, I found out that CP1250 has been working for me. So try to work with UTF-8. If it works for you, great and good. But for my case, it doesn't work, so I'm going to be using this, and which works for me. So just go ahead and try out a couple of these and see which one works for you. Okay, so once you have that, you can even visually inspect the data, right? And once you're comfortable, just click on next, and then click on next, and that's going to go ahead and do all the imports. Once you're done, just click on this and then click on finish. So now if you execute this code right here, now you can see we have data inside of our office database. So great. All right, good. So that's one step forward. So now let's go ahead and see which other table can we insert data into. So now that we have inserted data into our office table, we can also insert data into our employees table, because the only foreign key in our employees table is the office code, which already now exists in our office table. But for now, let's go ahead and, yeah, we can also just do that. So let's go ahead and try to do that. Okay. So now we're going to go ahead into our original database, which is just the classic models. Go under tables, go under employees, and then finally view that, and then export that file into a CSV. So just say employee employees, just export that. So once we have that exported, I'm going to go close this, go back into my classic models test DB, go under employees table, and then finally go ahead and click on import. Go ahead, browse, select the employees file that you just exported, go on next. You say use existing table because we already have that table selected. Now you need to select the table, and this table is employees. Okay, so once we have that there, you just click on next, and let's make sure everything here matches. So first name matches with first name, last name matches last name, extension, email, office, and then okay, so everything match. And I'm gonna go ahead and change my encoding to this encoding because that's what works for me. So go with what works for you. Okay, so once I have this, I'm gonna go ahead and click on next, next, and then next. Okay, finish. So now once you do that, if you go back into employees table, now you can see it's empty. If I run the query again, now you can see we have data inside of it. Good. So now we have data instead of our employees table. So office table, now you have data instead of our employees table. So what else do we need? So if you look at this right here, you can see customer information now only depends on the employee, and we have the information inside of the employees table already. So we can just pull data from the customers table or the customers entity. Now we can insert data into the customers entity because now we have the employee number already in there, which is being referred to by the foreign key sales employee number. So now we can go ahead and do that. So let's go back in here, go into our original databases, classic models, go into employees right here, and then finally export that file. Okay, so I'm going to export that file, and I'm going to call it customers, just like that, .csv. So once I have that imported, I'm going to go back into our classic models test DB, go under customers, right? It's just the same thing we are doing over and over again. Go in here, go browse, and then select the customer information, go next, click on next, use existing, and then make sure you select the customers table right here. Okay, so once you have that, so click on next, and then make sure that everything here matches as it should. And once it matches, postal code matches, credit limit matches credit. So this right here is now sales representative. So sometimes you can get this conflict, so always visual inspect it to make sure everything is correct, right? So country, postal code, state, city, addresses, phone, and all that, and make sure everything matches. And once it matches, you just go ahead and for my case, I'm going to change the encoding type. Next, next, and then finally, we have an issue right here. It says, I cannot import credit limit imported twice. So let me just go back in here. Credit limit. Okay, this seems not to be changing. So change it to that. Okay. Okay, so next. Okay, the encoding is correct. So next, next. Okay, so we have that imported, so that's good. So if you go back into original database and you execute, close this up, and you try to visualize, now you're supposed to see all that record in there. Good. So let's go back in here. So we have data in here. Now we can insert it. You can insert the payment detail because the payment details has a foreign key called customer number, and now you have customer number itself for our system, right? So let's go ahead and now import in the payment details. So go back into original database, classical models, go into payments, right, payments, and then finally export this file as a CSV. So this is going to be payments. So payments, get that spelling right. So payments, and once I have that selected, I'm going to close this, go back into our classic models test DB, go under payments, so select payments, and then in here just go ahead and say you're going to import this file, browse, select the payments information, okay, next, and then I'm going to use the existing database. Okay, make sure you select the payments information right here, payments, and then yeah, everything works as it should. And then make sure you change the encoding. For my case, in your case, it might not be. So check if everything detail is correct here. It's probably matched. Yeah, it's probably matched. And then you can go ahead and next, next. And let's give it some time to import that file. And then finally click on next, next. So if I now go into run this, now you're supposed to see now data instead of my payments table. Good. So now we have that done. So we have payments done. We have everything here done. So good. So now let's go into the product table. Now let's import data into the product line. Sorry, not products, product line. Okay, so let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to go into my original database, go into product lines, and then export this in form of CSV. So I'm going to call it product lines. Okay, so once I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and close this, go back into my original, into classic models test DB, go under product line, and then say import data from an external file, and then browse, and then select the product line file that you just exported. Next, use existing. Make sure this is product lines, and once you have everything, click next, and then make sure you check all the encoding here and the encodings match. Once it's matched, change the file encoding. For me, I have to change it. In your case, UTF, it might be working. So go with what works for you. And once we have that done, click on next. 7 files imported. Now if I run this file again, now we have data in there. Good. So let's go back and see. Okay, so once you have data in there, now let's look at this file right here. So we can also look at the product, because the product has only one foreign key, and the only foreign key is in product line, and which is this product line information right here. So now we can go ahead and insert data for products. So because we have the data that the foreign key references to. So go into products, go into the original database, and then export this as a CSV file. So I'm going to call it products. Okay, so once that's exported, I'm going to go into my classic models test DB, go in here, go import file from an external file, choose a browser file, select the product. Okay, so this is just like a repetition basically, and then make sure that it is products. Yeah, and you can check the change the encoding in my case, and then finally check if the different types are properly matched. MSRP, buy price, quantity, product sold, and all that information. Once you are satisfied with the matching, you can just go ahead and click on next, next. Okay, and give us a bit of time to import this. So once that's done, click on this, and if you run this again, now you see we have data in here. Good. So once we have data inside of our product file, let's look at the orders table. Okay, so the order table now only has foreign key that is coming from the customer number table, and this now parent key already has information. So now we can now import the child. Okay, the child object, the child entity basically. So go into your original database, classic models, go into orders, and then finally we're just going to export that as orders. Okay, so orders.csv. So once I have that exported, I'm going to close this up. And I'm going to go into classic models test DB and go under orders. You can see that right now it has nothing inside. So click export import file from external file, go under orders, and then click on OK. Click on next, use existing table. I'm going to change this to be orders. Okay, and then finally next, and then change for my case, I have to change the encoding, and then check the data types if it's correctly matched. And once you're satisfied with that, you just click on next, next, and then give us a bit of time. Looks like okay, next, and then finally click on okay. So now if I run this, now I see data in here, right? Good. So now we have our data in orders table. The only table remaining is this one right here, and it has information, two foreign keys, one from the orders table and one from the products table. Since now both parents have data, we already have data for both parent tables. So now we can just import data into the child table. Okay, the child entity is going to be order details. So close this up, and I'm going to go into my classic models database, go under order details, expand that. You can now go ahead and export this. You're going to simply call this order details. Okay, so press enter. So once I have that done, I'm going to go ahead and close this off, and I'm going to go into our classic models test DB, go under order details. Right now it has nothing inside. Click on export file from export data from external file. Click on order details, click on that, click on next, click on use existing table, click on next. You can change my formatting. In my case, my encoding. In your case, you might not need to change the content. This is order number. Okay, so I'm going to change this to be order line number. It looks like I selected the wrong table, so I'm just gonna close this and try this one more time. Let's browse this, and this is gonna be order details. Okay, and then expand this. So I'm going to use existing table. This is going to be okay. I think I didn't select the database right here, so I mean the table, right? So change this and then make sure that everything matches as it should. And once you're satisfied with that, click on next, next, and then the data should be imported. And once we have the data done, let's see. So we have that imported. So I'm gonna click on next and then finish. So if I run this, now I should still see data in here. So now we have everything done basically. Yeah, so that's it, and we have all the records in here inserted successfully. So I've just learned how to design a database by using the classic models database. We're able to design a database off of that, do ERDs, have the ERDs use the have the ERDs. Basically, we generated the code from the ERDs, and then all that information, right? So yeah, that's basically how you can generate an ERD, uh, establish the foreign keys, the primary keys, check all the relationships, and then be able to map all that information together and create something, create an exact replica, insert data into it, and we have everything as it should, right? So yeah, that's basically it for how you can create that data, that information, basically. Yeah, so that's all I wanted us to discuss in this video. So now you are able now to create your own databases, draw ERDs both on online platforms like draw.io, move the records here, draw the entities again, create the relationships, and then yeah, do all that. Okay. So before we go, there is one thing I forgot to have mentioned earlier on is the different primary key constraints. So for example, let me just click on this table, click on this table. So double click on the table, any table of your choice. So let's go into foreign key, and on the side here you have foreign key options. So let me just see if I can expand it all the way this way. It doesn't actually work. So you can see we have the foreign key options right here. So we have the different options. We have restrict, cascade, not null, and all this. Okay. So by default, you can just go ahead and choose any option you want, but to choose a good option, you have to know what each option means and what it does, right? So let's quickly, so to choose an option, you have to know what each option is and what it does. So let's quickly jump into in here, and I have a quick summary of all these options. So the first option we have is cascade. So if you go in here and you just select an option, you can see we have cascade option. So what does this mean? So cascade, what it simply means is that when update is done on the parents table, right? So this is a foreign keys, right? So when update is done on the parents table, push the updates to all the child tables as well. So what this basically means, for example, if you update a primary key or in a child, if you update a primary key of a record within the parents table, then the record will be pushed to the children table as well. So for example, we have a parents table and a child table, right? So if I update the ID of the parent from 224 to 225, then it will also reflect the changes also be done in the child table. So that's basically what cascade means. So cascade is mostly used on whenever you're updating something, because if you want to update the primary key, you want the changes to be pushed over. So you can go ahead here and just change all your primary keys to become cascade. So that's it. And now also on updates, meaning that when you change and whenever we change the primary key of a child of a parents table, then we're also going to go ahead and update the ones in the child table. So also have restriction. So I mean restrict. So what strict, this option will prevent you from deleting rows in the parents table. So if I have two tables that are connected, and you want the situation such that whenever you delete data within the parents table, right, you basically you want to prevent the delete of data within the parents table, because if you delete data within the parents table and there is a child table that is referring to this data, then the child table will be referring to a null value that doesn't exist. So you want, if you want, case you want to implement such a situation whereby a child child table must cannot refer to a null value, then you use restrict, right? Cannot refer to void, then you use strict. So it's mostly used in deleting. So you don't want to delete a parent and then leave the child hanging. So you can keep delete, and mostly used for deleting. Okay, so you can go in here and then change this to delete. So you can click all the other tables and make the changes if you want. So click on this table and then click on this primary key, on this foreign key. You can change cascade and then leave the delete to be this. So this, you can do the same to all the other tables if you want to. So you can just go in here and do that quick update. So click this one. You can say on delete cascade, and then also yeah, cascade, right? So yeah, something simple like that. So you can just go ahead and do it in all the other tables that you have. So click on this one as well, and you can also do cascade. So yeah, just go ahead and do that to all the other tables if you want to. Okay, so select this, click on this, and then say cascade. Select this, you can click on it, and then click again cascade. But on the default database that you have been using, classical module, it has been set to restrict, means that you cannot update the primary key. Okay, so that's basically it. And also we have the null value. So set null, what basically means that whenever a parent, the record in a parent is being referred to by a child entity, whenever that record in the parent entity is deleted, then set the record within the parent entity to be null. So sorry for that, let me just close that. So that's basically what it means, right? So whenever you have a record in the parents table, whenever that record is deleted, right, set the record within the child table to become null. So basically the child table will be referring to now. That's basically what set now means. So, and also we have no action, basically meaning that whenever you delete a record, do not do cascade or do not do set now, and this can lead to an error. So the rule of thumb is whenever you're trying to update something, you can either go with restrict or cascade, and then whenever you're deleting something, go with restrict or set now. Okay, so these are the conventions. Okay, so let's go back to our table and set everything back to restrict, because that's what the original database has it at us. So restrict, and then go in here, set update to be restrict. Okay, strict, not restrict. So click on this again, click on this, and then set it back to strict. Okay, so click on this as well, set it back to strict. The reason I'm setting it back to strict is because that was what the original database have. Okay, so it's not a must that you have to set it to strict, but yeah, you can just do that. Okay, so go in here again, select this, set to strict. Oh yeah, we don't have any foreign key. Yeah, click on this, set it back to strict. Click on this as well, set it back to strict. So by default it is no action, and then on delete you're also going to set that to strict. Okay, so yeah, that's all I wanted to do. So make sure I have everything there done. So just the last checks. Yeah, so once we have everything done, and hopefully I didn't miss any table. So once I have everything here done, so I can simply go ahead. How do I do an update? So you can think we can go back in here, delete this database, and then do a gummy and then do a forward engineer to create a new one. Now that's really just tedious. So what you can simply do is just click on this and then say synchronize model, and then simply go ahead and click yes, click next, and then finally type in your database, right? Yeah, your password. Okay, so once you have the password there, click next, and then make sure you select this one and click next, and then click next. Okay, so you're going to show all the tables that will be updated. Go ahead and simply click, you can actually view if you want. So click on next. You can see the code right here. Click next, and then finally click close. So all those changes should be done in this database as well. So we can still have all the data in here as well. So that's basically it, how you can do changes to those keys. And one more thing that I didn't mention earlier on is that you see, you already have the classical model database, right? So how do you take this classical model and generate generate an ERD from it? So we have a database and you want to generate an ERD from a physical database. So how do you do that? You just click on the database. So I'm going to go ahead and say set as default. So now I've set the classical models as default, and then go to data and then do reverse engineer. So if you do reverse engineer, just go ahead and next, and then it will ask you for a password. So you want to do reverse engineer for this database. Okay, so click on next. Next, it will ask you for a password along the way. Okay, it didn't ask me, so click next and then close. So you can see now we have now an ERD of an existing database. So you can see this this is a view that we have instead of a database. So you can see that's basically how you can generate an ERD from a physical database that you've already created. So that's basically it, how you can generate an ERD from an existing physical database. So that's got all for this in this video. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next one. Keep safe.